Welcome to DaAi Headlines. I'm Wendy Chen. Thank you for joining us. Coming up in today's top stories, in the United States, Tzu Chi receives recognition from the White House for its relief efforts after Hurricane Sandy. We visit local residents in China's Sichuan province to see how they are adjusting to their lives 5 years after the 2008 Wenchuan earthquake. And as this year marks the 10th anniversary of the SARS epidemic, we look back at the diversion of medical staff at the Deng Heping Hospital. First up, in the United States, days following the explosion of a fertilizer plant in the town of West Texas, a security perimeter remains around the blast site to keep residents and media from entering. To date, only Tzu Chi has been granted permission to enter the disaster zone to assess and report on the current situation.
In the town of West Texas, 8 days following the blast of a fertilizer plant, the press are still following up on the latest information distributed by the local authorities.
We volunteers are serving as Master Zheng Yan's eyes and feet. We will reach out to disaster areas to report on the situation and the victims' needs for our fellow volunteers around the globe.
Even as members of the press are still waiting for permission to enter the disaster site, Tzu Chi volunteers were already on the site filming and reporting. Here at the blast site, workers are busy cleaning up the plant that was leveled.
It's 7:53 on April the 17th. There was a fire. It caused a small explosion, which caused an even larger explosion. 50,000 pounds of fertilizer that exploded. It caused the accident.
Around 200 meters from the blast site, a row of apartments is in ruins. A nursing home on the opposite side of the street and nearby houses were also damaged.
The blast took place and 12 firefighters and emergency responders lost their lives trying to save lives. Right now we're providing security for the perimeter that's set up around the disaster zone here, the blast site and so forth. Everybody's pitching in to try to secure the area and make sure it's stabilized before the residents can come back in. Some of these people have lost everything. You know, some of the houses caught on fire and burned to the ground. They have nothing left. This community needs help.
Inside the disaster zone, a burning smell still remains and destroyed houses are everywhere. To ensure the safety of local residents, the police set up a security perimeter to restrict access. Seeing how Tzu Chi volunteers from across the country have offered their timely help, the sheriff of the town extends his heartfelt gratitude.
I don't know what to say. It's just so sad. It's just really, and they need help. And whatever you do, I want you to know how much it will be appreciated.
Staying in the United States, the White House regularly recognizes individuals, businesses, and organizations for making a difference in society through the program of Champions of Change. Among those recently awarded for their relief efforts in the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy is Tzu Chi, the only international religious organization selected.
In the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy, despite water and power shortages, Tzu Chi volunteers still managed to cook hot meals and deliver them into the hands of the disaster victims. Other than hot meals, blankets and daily necessities were also delivered. In less than a month, many disaster victims had already received $600 in cash cards. Learning of the disaster, Tzu Chi volunteers around the globe took to the streets to raise funds for the hurricane victims. To recognize individuals or groups who do extraordinary things to empower and inspire members of their communities, the White House set up the Champions of Change program, with Tzu Chi picked from over 1,000 nominees this year.
We shared how Tzu Chi volunteers carried out short-term to long-term relief work with their government officials, and they thought it was amazing. Janet Scott, the deputy director at the White House Office of Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships, said she was really moved by Tzu Chi, so she helped us apply for the award.
Overall, 17 individuals and groups were awarded, among which Tzu Chi was the sole international religious organization.
In the wake of a major disaster, people will see the power of a religion. Regardless of our ethnicity, faith, or color, when a disaster hits, love and unity play their role.
What makes Tzu Chi volunteers even more joyful is they learned that 8 of the awardees had worked to help others in need after they received Tzu Chi's cash cards.
因为我们一直讲说 pay it forward.
What Tzu Chi has been doing is to influence more people in a positive way, as it will be paying the love forward to change communities and the world for the better.
As the disaster victims are still on their path to recovery, Tzu Chi volunteers will continue to accompany them towards a better future.
Following months of relief work to help Hurricane Sandy survivors, the Tzu Chi New York chapter organized a photo exhibition at the Taipei Economic and Cultural Representative Office in New York. Let's take a look.
At the Taipei Economic and Cultural Representative Office in New York, Tzu Chi volunteers organized a photo exhibition of their Hurricane Sandy relief work. Among the visitors are not only local residents, but also travelers from abroad.
I'm on an official trip to the United States. These photos reminded me of Tzu Chi's aid for the victims of the 8 floods in Taiwan, as well as the donations we received from over 50 overseas regions or countries.
After viewing the exhibition, this father and son pair asks volunteers for Tzu Chi's contact information.
I think that this is a wonderful exhibit to educate us of one of the multiple organizations that have assisted people in this time of crisis.
Through the exhibition, volunteers hope that more people will care for Hurricane Sandy victims and better learn of Tzu Chi's work.
I think it's easy to say that something's over when, if your house was not destroyed. So I think to have these exhibits in a continued way after the fact is necessary. It's important we remember for those.
The photo exhibition will be displayed across the country, with its next stop in the New York State Capitol building.
This year marks the 5th anniversary of the devastating 5.12 earthquake in China, with survivors slowly recovering from the terrifying event. Beginning today, DaAi TV reporters are taking us back to Wenchuan to see what the government has done after the tremor to help local residents rebuild their homes. On the morning of April 20th, a 7.0 magnitude earthquake was recorded at the Longmensan Fault in Sichuan province, where an 8.0 magnitude tremor occurred in 2008, causing severe losses in Wenchuan.
The earthquake occurred along a southwest section of the Longmensan Fault, and the 5.12 tremor also took place along the top central part of the fault. The formation of the fault causing earthquakes above 7 magnitudes is quite common.
Red ribbons are normally used by Qiang people in celebration as a prayer for blessings. However, here it is a sign of respect for the deceased. Time here seems to have stopped on the afternoon of May 12, 2008.
Beichuan is the only Qiang autonomous county in China. Here you can see Qiang people's respect towards sheep. Behind me is the area's only 3-star hotel, which was originally a 7-story high building, but was damaged by the tremor. As this was the epicenter of the Wenchuan earthquake, the area is now referred to as Old Beichuan, because residents here have relocated to a neighboring county, and this is now preserved to commemorate the quake.
The unforgettable pain and loss prompted the Chinese government for the first time to carry out urban planning based on a scientific approach.
Before, it was considered as a natural disaster. However, after reconstruction, if we can't partially prevent tragic events and prevent our people from suffering again, then it is not acceptable. So we were under immense pressure back then.
Safety was given top priority in reconstruction, and the first step in searching for a suitable location was to avoid areas that were prone to quakes, landslides and floods.
At that time, we carried out a comprehensive analysis of all the towns and townships in Beichuan, and we couldn't find any area that was safe. In fact, it is an extremely dangerous region, mainly because there are 3 faults here. To be honest, adding to the fact that the area is prone to landslides, we had to relocate and rebuild.
After many inspections, the government decided to carve out 2.5 towns from An County as the new Beichuan. The unprecedented rebuilding took geology, hydrology, architecture and customs into consideration. The newly completed new Beichuan even preserved a slice of Chang culture. Nevertheless, such large-scale relocation also sparked concern of the impact on traditional cultures. Perhaps it is a sense of mission to pass on their culture. Residents here practice the Chang dance whenever they can.
Hailed as the first village in Beichuan, Jina means beautiful goddess in the Chang language. After the 5/12 earthquake, reconstruction began in June and was completed in December of the same year. 71 households moved into the earliest completed settlement.
The reconstructed village is a popular tourist destination. Seeing the arrival of DaAi TV reporters, the shaman of the Chang tribe puts on a special dance. The tradition of the Chang people is not documented and is passed on through word of mouth.
Chang people are now scattered. There aren't many of us anymore. There are more Han Chinese and Tibetans.
The government can only do so much to help, with the passing of traditional cultures relying heavily on local residents. The path to recovery hasn't been an easy one. The land that was once planned for construction of a large community has now become a memorial site used to commemorate loved ones. In facing ever more frequent natural disasters, it seems like mankind has learned its lesson. Though learning it the hard way, the disasters have strengthened our determination to respect and safeguard Mother Nature. Have you heard of ecological restoration? It's an increasingly common practice of restoring damaged ecosystems by human actions such as planting trees. This practice is not limited to forests, but is applicable to wetlands or any ecosystem that needs repair. Today we meet an individual who has turned his land from a betel nut tree farm into a robust rainforest.
Man-made forests are often seen as an ideal solution to rebuilding the planet's forests. However, many environmental protection groups do not agree, as in doing so, the trees originally there have to be removed first, and saplings take their place instead. Experts fear this is a catalyst for landslides.
What we are seeing currently is exposed ground, so when it rains, this area will experience massive land loss problems. We don't know much about Taiwan's soil, and we have been going about it in the wrong way, in trying to make the soil better.
According to the Environmental Constitution Supervision Act, Article 37, Section 9, government offices should encourage, assist, reimburse, or subsidize environmental restoration. If landowners carry out such a plan, Taiwan's government shall assist with subsidies of $20,000 over 20 years of time.
The manpower and profit made from this plot of land is not worth the time and effort, so why not let nature restore the land?
Carrying out environmental restoration is using animals and wind to help with plant sowing and letting nature take its course.
Over here, this is my betel nut tree field that we left alone for 23 years, and now it's a tropical rainforest.
This is Chao Rongxu, the person responsible for changing a betel nut tree farm into something good for the environment. 20 years ago, when Chao moved back to Zhongpu Township, he realized trees are the lungs of the earth. and decided to transform the over 77,000 square meters of property his ancestors left him into a tropical rainforest.
My neighbors said to me, how come the ground beneath your trees is so dirty? What will become of your property?
In his neighbor's eyes, the restoration practitioner looked like a fool for not maintaining his betel nut tree properly. However, in the past 20 years, instead of monetary profits, Chao has gained a forest filled with hundreds of different species of insects and birds. Longtime expert in Taiwan's forestry ecosystem, Yang Guozhen says Chao's forest has many of the island's native species of plants. The forest is classified into 5 distinct layers. At the first layer, one finds the Areca kataku tree, otherwise known as the betel nut tree.
On the second layer are trees such as turn in the wind and pandan leaves, and the third is the common shed flora. Then a bush layer is found in the fourth. Finally, a fifth layer is the ground layer. This is how Taiwan's forests are laid out.
The distinct layers act as an umbrella to protect the ground, so when it rains, the soil stays intact. This is something man-made forests are unable to reproduce.
Our parks and the greens we see in the city are at most a field of grass and individual trees. That kind of scenic view is our typical temperate deciduous trees.
As ecological restoration is now something widely accepted, the idea has also spread to the mountain regions of Dongxing village. Dai Liangbing is overjoyed at discovering a paper mulberry tree in his forest, as 2 years ago, Dai decided to plant some trees in an abandoned betel nut field.
Originally, I didn't know anything either. I came here to get to know these trees. Watching them grow is like seeing my own children grow up.
Respecting the laws of nature is perhaps the best way to cohabitate peacefully with the planet. Yet relying on a few individuals to restore the balance of nature is definitely not enough. The government needs to step in with proper guidelines and enforcement of laws to see results.
On April 24th this year, Taiwan reported its first case of the H7N9 avian influenza. On the same day 10 years ago, the then Heping Hospital in Taipei was locked down after having reported an outbreak of SARS. Today we travel back in time to the panic and fear the country lived through.
At 3 p.m. on the afternoon of April 24, 2003, we received a call from all Heping Hospital staff to return to the hospital. I thought to myself, why would the government implement such a quarantine measure to summon some 1,000 hospital staff back to the hospital and isolate them with the other SARS patients? The virus can easily spread.
This is the journal entry of former Heping Hospital pediatrician Lin Binghong, recorded during the time Heping Hospital was on lockdown after having reported an outbreak of SARS. A month prior to the lockdown of Heping Hospital, the Taipei Department of Health only then announced that all SARS patients should not be admitted to municipal hospitals, but admitted to medical centers instead.
Heping Hospital had used all 9 of its negative pressure wards to hold tuberculosis patients, and it was announced to the public that there were insufficient beds. So all SARS patients were to transferred elsewhere. It was really unethical.
Despite not having received any SARS patients, Heping Hospital nevertheless experienced a massive outbreak of SARS and became the first hospital in Taiwan to be isolated.
On the 4th day after Heping Hospital went into lockdown, the then Health Bureau Director Cho Shu-ti arrived at the hospital in a protective suit. Set aside the fact that she didn't come at first instance, the fact that she came more protected than us really shows the disregard on the government's part towards these frontline medical personnel.
To capture and record the significant yet tragic incident in Taiwan's history, the director of the documentary, An Exposure of an Affected Hospital, Zhu Xianzhi, spent over a year to document the journey of former Heping Hospital doctor Zhou Jingkai, who was dismissed by the government for having disobeyed the government's order to return to the hospital during the hospital lockdown.
After the Heping Hospital incident subsided, Dr. Zhou was the only one who suffered the consequences for his actions. He took all the blame for the downfall, while others got away with the same thing. Is that fair? In fact, I think it's absurd.
Facing an unprecedented virus and the country's first mass infection sent the general public and government into panic and confusion.
But it is not necessarily the disease itself that has stoked fear, but rather the greed, the selfishness, and the blaming that is really frightening. The biggest problem the central government faced at the time was the lack of centralized command and proper coordination with local governments.
As dangerous and new as SARS was, the media was partly responsible for the heightened panic among members of the public. Statistics conducted showed that at the time, 40 to 50% of the public felt that the excessive reporting of the SARS epidemic helped fuel widespread panic. Moreover, with the lack of a consistent strategy between the central and local governments, the public was at a loss as what to do.
The central government's and municipal government strategies were inconsistent. The implementation and execution of policies were incompatible. Third, the poor communication between the central and municipal governments greatly hampered the government's credibility in the eyes of the general public.
The former director of the Department of Health, Tu Xingzhe, admits government strategies need to be revisited and revised.
The starting point is that politics should respect professionals. Secondly, we need one centralized epidemic control center so that we can rely on the power of the media to accurately report on the epidemic.
10 years ago, Taiwan suffered from an outbreak of SARS, in which 346 people were infected and 73 lost their lives. Among those were many medical personnel who were at the front line of fighting the outbreak. Till this day, we honor their sacrifice, and their courage and bravery will live on in our hearts forever.
Next, we meet Mary Tyson from the Philippines, who through the help of Tzu Ji was able to complete her studies and go on to become an elementary school teacher as she dreamed of.
Seeing all the awards on the wall, it is easy to see what a successful student Mary Tyson was. However, 4 years ago, things were tough and her parents were at a breaking point.
Regardless of how difficult life was, my parents were always there to support me. Every night they would pick me up at the bus stop, even if they were tired.
Tzu Ji not only helped her with tuition subsidies, but also taught her much life wisdom. Tzu Ji also helped us parents guide our daughter on the right path in life.
Understanding the sacrifice of her parents, Mary Tyson made the most of her schooling, as she knew it was the key to changing her life and that of her families. Now teaching her own students, Mary has come to full circle in her pursuit of education.
I'm so happy to present this diploma to my parents and those Tzu Ji volunteers that helped us.
After graduation, it has been another group of people that has been there by Mary's side.
Excellent! In Indonesia's West Sumatra, Tzu Ji volunteers who are concerned for the health of students carried out a free eye examination service at a local school in Padang and handed out glasses to those in need. We'll leave you with these images. Thank you for tuning in. Goodbye.